Going now into one of the stories in our in this mythology book that I have really learned to love. It's a story which was assigned to me when I was in college, and from it I found a very good number of possible themes that could be picked out from the selection. We have the story of the quest of the Golden Fleece. But before going to that story, I'd like us though to begin with our literature lesson. The literature lesson that focuses on knowing characters, the types of characters that we have in a story or in a narrative, and the way to describe them, because we could find that at the bottom part of our module. To start, we have what we call a major or essential character. The presence of a major or essential character creates a good progression of the plot, because everything in the narrative revolves around this character or these characters. By the way, when we say a major character, that's not just necessarily the good guy or the good person in the story. A villain may also come out of the bad character, may also, let's just use the better term later on. The bad character is also a central character in the narrative itself, because the story also revolves around that bad character. And then comes a supporting one or a minor character. However, I think I've said this already last time. For some reasons, I don't want to put it in a way where we see the major or the central character as the most important character. I think I'm not sure if I've mentioned it, but if I did, just let me reiterate. To me, of course, feel free to have your own disagreement to this later on. But to me, it's unfair. I find it unfair to call a character the most important character and the minor character to be called the lesser important character. Because again, we cannot have a major or central character if no character there can be identified as a minor one. Like logic would tell you that. For one to stand out as the major or central character, we need the presence of minor characters. Without those minor characters, no matter how minute the role is for that minor character, the purpose or the presence of the character already contributes to the idea that we indeed have to establish a major or a central character. So again, the way I see it, I see both characters, I would place both characters to be equally important in the plot. Without each other's presence, the plot cannot definitely progress. We also have a dynamic character. I'd like to do some corrections to what I said last week, because these elements of a short story analysis were mentioned. Let me do some corrections. A dynamic character, for the purpose, especially that we have this separate discussion this time. A dynamic character is one that changes significantly in the run of the plot. That's dynamic. That's a kind of character we refer to as dynamic. Again, one that undergoes a significant change. Perhaps the most obvious one is maybe from being the bad guy, the person becomes a good guy. After having resolved some issues with him or herself, the character becomes a good person at the latter part of the narrative. That is indeed a significant change. If the person doesn't go through a significant change in characteristics or personality, the person is then identified as static. Nothing changes in the life of the character. It could be that the character started to be the good guy, and the character remains to be the good guy at the end. Nothing significant has changed. I mean, it's quite plotted already that shall be the flow of the personality of the character. Wait, you paused. Or you could go for the bad guy impression. The character was indeed the villain at the start, and the story progresses, then the story eventually reaches its end with the same personality, the same evil personality or bad personality of the character. Then we have two other terms, the round character and the flat character. A round character is a layered character. When we say layered, the character is composed of several personalities or characteristics. That makes him a layered or her a layered character. It's possible that the character may be dynamic and round at the same time. Or it's possible that the character is not dynamic, maybe static, a good guy, but also has plenty of personalities or characteristics that makes him still a round character. The layering, the injection of several characteristics that will come out from that character, several personalities that will come out from the character as the narrative goes on. Contrary to that is our flat character. A flat character is one that is not layered at all, meaning one-dimensional. A character that does not possess anything that makes it distinct in terms of personalities and characteristics from the first part of the story as it goes on. There are probably cases where you would say the static character can be a flat character. That may be true because it's possible that that character is just a generous person all throughout, and that no other a significant personality has come out or been injected into that character. So the characters remain to be flat. Stock characters. Stock characters are those that have become conventional or stereotypical through repeated use in particular types of stories. They have already become recognizable to readers and members of the audience because of the many times that they have been used, to the point that they've already been used as symbols of something, representations of concepts. I don't know if you know, I hope you know him. What is this? A Filipino character made in our folk tales, Juan Tamad. Juan Tamad is in fact made as an allusion, and there's a story that we know of Juan Tamad. There's like several versions of the many stories that we know where his name is part of the narrative. Eventually, his name comes out as a symbol of laziness. So that he's an example of a stock character. Another one, a protagonist. So I think this is the one that we shall refer to commonly in layman's term as the good guy, the good character. And without this, more or less, many readers of a story feel like though I'm not saying that it should be all, many readers of stories would feel like the story is useless because there's no good guy who shall triumph at the end. And many readers would definitely hope to see a happy ending for this good person. But the presence of a protagonist is more or less challenged by the presence of another character known as the antagonist. Someone who makes the life of the protagonist maybe miserable, challenging at some point, or indeed making the life, or the presence of the antagonist has made the life of the protagonist colorful as the narrative progresses. Another term, an antihero. Antihero or antihero. This character is a protagonist by nature. Hello. There, I'm back. I'm sorry for that. The antihero is a protagonist by nature. It's just that this is not the typical protagonist that we know. Yes, we have a protagonist in the picture. It's just that this protagonist does something outside of what the typical protagonist does. What kind of action do we expect for a typical protagonist? Good actions, or anything that relates to goodness. The anti-hero does something which others may not necessarily like or does an action which deviates from what we consider to be an act of goodness. A clear, and I think you know this guy. A clear example to this is Robin Hood. He is an anti-hero. What, in simple words, how would you describe Robin Hood in terms of the things that he does? How would you call him then? How would you call Robin Hood?
He resorts to violent ways, sir.
He resorts to violent ways. Well, that's one thing. Or perhaps, yeah, that's actually true at some point. But try to give me one word. How would you describe him with the things that he does in the narratives? How would you describe him? Al.
One word lang, sir.
One word or perhaps a phrase. Because there's actually one thing that he is commonly known of. He does this, and that makes him a blank. Try. Hello? Oh, you're on mute.
My I would describe him as a someone who has good intentions but bad execution.
Correct. Like what bad executions or bad activities did he do?
Robbery.
Correct. He robs people or robs places. He's a thief. But he is doing it because he wants to help those who are in need. But if you look at the act of stealing or robbery, is that one that is within the morals of society, like one that is morally acceptable? Unfortunately, it's not. But that is what he did, what he does in the narratives. Still, that does not make him an antagonist. The plot still revolves around him. That makes him the central character. He's not the bad guy. He's the good guy. He's still a protagonist. The only difference is that he does things not within the norms of what we consider morally right. Then we have a foil character. A foil character is one that does something, may even act as an antagonist to eventually uncover or reveal what the protagonist or what another central character is capable of doing. One character in our story this morning functions or acts in this purpose. We have the character of Pelias, P-E-L-I-A-S. I'll mention him later on. I'll dwell I'll dwell with his life later on. But for the purpose of discussing him as a foil character, this Pelias character in the Quest of the Golden Fleece is not the real king, it's not the supposed king, but he took over and then he challenged our main character, Jason, and that revealed the kind of person who Jason really is. It uncovered the real personality or characteristics of our main character, and it was made through the presence of a foil character. Then we have symbolic characters. Symbolic characters are those that have been used to represent people in society or those that are taken as representations of the different characteristics and personas that are existing around us. Take for instance, you'll read one of the classical Filipino novels, the El Filibusterismo and the No Limitangere. You'll find that characters in these works of Rizal are representations of the kinds of Filipinos existing before and may even be true up to this time. They are not necessarily archetypal symbols, just like stock characters. Take note, stock characters have been repeatedly used to the point that they now come out as symbols of something. As for symbolic characters, they exist perhaps only to one or two, to true to that material only, but we could see some significant representation that this character does. The presence of that character makes us realize that it is this kind of personality may be true to what we could have in our society. There is a representation that this character has done to whatever is also seen in society. Any question before we proceed? Any question regarding those types of characters? Major or central, minor. You can also call the minor character the supporting character. You can also call the major character the main character. Dynamic, static, round, flat, stock, protagonist, antagonist, antihero, foil, and symbolic. Do we have any question? Because if there's none, allow me to proceed to the ways to describe characters. Describing characters can be done directly or indirectly. At any rate, you are doing what we call a characterization. Characterization is the reader's or viewer's attempt to have their say of what a character is, of what the reader or viewer has thought of regarding that character. This could be done in two ways. Again, you could have it directly or indirectly. Direct characterization would involve what the narrator or speaker directly says or thinks about a character. So this is one that is explicitly found in the text because it comes from what the speaker or the narrator has said about that character. So if it is said, if the description says that the character is a foolish one, if the narrative contains these words and you use it to describe a character, you are doing it directly, as the description has already been stated beforehand by the narrator or by the speaker in the narrative. The indirect characterization refers to what the character says or does, and this will now invite the reader to process the information. Given that this is what the character does, given that this is what the character says, what can I use to describe the character? If the character says, for instance, I'm the character, and then I said, I really want to go to an adventure right now. I'm going to explore the high seas. I'm going to journey over those mountains. Now, as the reader or audience of the material, what would you be able to say about me? What can you infer? It's there in your module. What can you infer about what that character is all about? Take note, your inference here matters in terms of what the character has just said or done. Now, given the example that I just had earlier about me saying that, again, I'm the character, then I said, I really want to go to an adventure. I'm going to cross the high seas. I'm going to conquer and journey over these mountains. What can you say about me then? No, Kathy, I'll call Kathy.
Character is adventurous and a free spirit, sir.
Adventurous, free-spirited. And then you look at the words, you try to pick up on the words that I said. Was there something there that said Sim is adventurous and free-spirited or has a free spirit? There's none. But where did Kathy bank her descriptions for the character? Where did Kathy, or how did Kathy come up with that inference of what the character is all about? It came from what the character has just said. Again, your inference, your description matters in terms of what the character says or what the character does. And I'd like to pinpoint this part of your module. Sometimes the reader will get it wrong. Sometimes the reader will get it wrong. And to justify your wrongness of the exact, because what you're just doing here is an inference. What the reader is coming up with in terms of indirect characterization is merely an inference. Who is the best person who knows the kind of character that exists in the narrative? Kid.
I think it's the author, sir.
The author, correct. The author is the one who created the character. So between the readers, the text itself, and the writer, it's the writer who is the best person to tell us what kind of character there exists in the text, in the material. Unfortunately, we cannot have the author in our midst all the time. We can though make an inference about our characters. To justify the possibility that our characterizations are incorrect, we give an explanation. Yes, an explanation can salvage us from the possibility of being totally told that our descriptions are incorrect. That is why since last year when you were in grade 9, because the lesson on characterization isn't new anymore to us. We had this when you were in grade 9. There's even a video recording available for, I think I'm not sure. To give justice or to justify your choice of a description to a character, explain. Explain. What made you say that the character is adventurous and has a free spirit? Let's start with that. Kathy, what made you say, Kath, that the character I had earlier with the words that I said is an adventurous one and has a free spirit?
The character mentioned that he or she wanted to go to places, sir.
See? Because the character, according to Kathy, the character mentioned that the character wants to go to places. And it did come out. It did come out from what the person has just said earlier. See, the description was based on what was said. Questions regarding characterization before we go to the quest of the Golden Fleece. I bet you are excited. If there's none, my screen froze. Hello? I hope I could still be heard clearly. Can I be heard clearly still? Hello, grade 10? Hello? Hello? There. Do I still sound choppy? Do I sound choppy to everyone? Very problematic internet connection. All right, do I sound all right now? Do I sound fine? Not choppy anymore? Okay. The quest of the Golden Fleece. I made mention of the name of the antagonist earlier, the name of whom is Jason, but the story did not begin with him. The story of the Golden Fleece, or the quest of the Golden Fleece narrative, begins with the name of a Greek king. His name is King Athamas. By the way, before I proceed, I'd like to request you to still find time to read what's found in the PDF file that I've sent to everyone. I've noticed that in the, how many STs now? 3? In the 3 STs that we've had, containing lessons or literary selections in mythology, I noticed that there were a few who tend to misspell names of people or even come up with own names. If you are unsure, you ask. You just send me a message and then still I'll send it as a possible answer in the chat box. Just ask, sir, how do we spell that word? If you don't remember, feel like reading what's found in the PDF file, sir, how do you spell that word? Sir, can we know the name again? Just send me a message in the chat box. Don't worry. Your messages can only be read by me. Just know that because we are dealing with names here, dealing with significant events. I've also noticed that there are a few who tend to come up with their own plot. If I'm not mistaken, I made mention that this will be our reference. Hamilton's words will be our reference for our discussions in mythology this quarter. So again, the story of the quest of the Golden Fleece begins with the Greek king named King Athamas. King Athamas had two wives. The first wife was Nephele. Nephele and King Athamas had two children, a boy and a girl. The boy's name is Phrixus, while the girl's name is How do I pronounce it? I'll just pronounce it as Hele. Just let me pronounce it as Hele to facilitate its spelling as well. Helle. It so happens that King Athamas, being a king himself, also had another wife, a princess, who by desire wanted that the kingdom eventually fall under her name, under the family where she is a part of. Princess Ino is our second wife. Hello, great. And may I know the last thing that you heard? What was it that you last heard from me?
It was actually
Hello. For a while. Sorry. Hello. Okay, Kathy sent me a message. You heard me spell the name of Hele. So I think that's the last thing that you heard. That's perhaps the last thing that you heard, no? Hele's name being spelled as Helle. Okay. So Phrixus. Okay, sounded choppy. So I'll thank you, Kat, for telling me that one, Kat. So again, Nephele and King Athamas had two children. Phrixus was the boy, Hele was the girl. Princess Ino, another woman to whom King Athamas was married, wanted, of course, that the rest of the throne be in her family. And how can that be made possible? That can only be made possible if the inheritor or the successor of the kingdom of Greece is from her side, from Princess Ino's side. Since there's already a boy, a son, a male son of King Athamas, that boy comes out as the possible successor of the throne. How would Princess Ino be able to get the kingdom under her family if there's already another one in a different family, in the family of Nephele? So she came up with a plot. She had a plan. The plan is she will get rid of that boy. Long before that plan was carried out, Nephele, the first wife, was already worried for her son. Nothing was said, though, that Nephele was of royalty blood. Perhaps she also is. But she must have known that there's already this threat coming from Princess Ino of trying to eliminate Phrixus and Hele, most especially Phrixus, being a male child of King Athamas. And indeed, the plot of Princess Ino was carried out. What did she do? What did Princess Ino do? The harvest of crops mattered so much in ancient Greece. Even up to this time, it mattered so much to people. And then she decided to gather all seed cords and have them hidden somewhere. So when harvesters came, and when they went out to sow, it's as if there was no more harvest at all. She made it appear that there was a plague. She made it appear that a plague had occurred, and that the only way to get rid of the plague was to sacrifice someone. She faked everything. Princess Ino connived with an oracle, because it's quite common for people before to consult oracles for whatever question they want to be answered, for whatever divine guidance they want to achieve or to receive. Princess Ino connived with an oracle and told that oracle that if a question is asked about how to get rid of the plague, the answer was the sacrifice of Phrixus. Was the sacrifice of Phrixus, that Phrixus be killed, be sacrificed instead. True enough, King Athamas consulted an oracle, and the question came out. King Athamas asked the oracle, how will we be able to get rid of this plague? But take note, there was none. There wasn't any plague at all. How will we be able to get rid of the plague? What was the answer of the oracle? You sacrifice your firstborn son, who in this case was Phrixus. True enough, the fear of Nephili did happen. King Athamas was now placed in a dilemma. It's now a battle between his love for his firstborn and the welfare of the Greek kingdom. And he then realized that he would be after of the welfare of the many, of the entire Greek kingdom. So then he was ready to sacrifice his own son. The idea seemed horrible to the Greeks, but to King Athamas himself, the idea seemed horrible in the first place. I mean, just imagine sacrificing your own son. But he was forced to do so for the welfare again of the Greek kingdom. As this was about to happen, a ram with golden fleece swooped down. Sorry for that. Excuse me for a while. I'm back. I just went out to confirm from other teachers if there really is a problem with the internet connection here. So there really is. So again, we now have King Athamas ready to sacrifice his own son. However, as this act was about to be completed, fulfilled, so you can imagine Princess Ino already at the verge of really being so excited and joyous about this, because if Phrixus dies, all that Princess Ino has to do is to give Athamas a firstborn, another male child. And with Phrixus out of the picture, her male child with Athamas would come out as the only firstborn male alive. Frozen again. Table. Okay. So as the sacrifice was about to be done, a ram covered in golden fleece swooped down from the skies and rescued both Phrixus and Hele. This ram was sent by Hermes in response to the prayers made by Nephili. So fortunately, Phrixus and Hele were saved. So the ram carried them over to one particular area. We'll go to that later on. However, as they were crossing the strait which separates Europe and Asia, Hele accidentally slipped and fell into the water, which resulted to her demise. That body of water where she fell was then named after her, and it's named Hellespont, the Sea of Helle. So now only one child of Athamas and Nephili remains to be alive, and that is Phrixus. Crossing that strait, Phrixus has reached the place of Colchis, ruled by a king named King Aeetes. Please be very careful with the spelling of the name of King Aeetes. It's as if if that name is asked for in the ST, try to put the spelling this way. I've sent it in the chat box. If you are asked to give the spelling of the name or the name of that king of Colchis, spell it that way. It's a capital letter A followed by a capital letter E, a small letter E, T, a small letter E, S. But if you are given the chance to write it down, like you yourself really writing it down on a piece of paper, once again, look at how the letters A and E, the capital letters A and E, are going to look like. That actually represents one of the 14 vowel sounds that we could find in the vehicular triangle, the E sound, the E sound. That's why his name is Aeetes. But I'll just pronounce it later on as Aeetes. Aeetes. So he's the king of Colchis, and supposedly the Colchians themselves are unfriendly people, unfriendly individuals. But they received Phrixus in such a friendly manner, perhaps maybe because he's a boy. Like, what harm could a boy possibly do to them? So he was welcomed openly by the Colchians. And with this, Phrixus decided to sacrifice and offer the ram to King Aeetes. No, he sacrificed to Zeus the ram, not to King Aeetes. He sacrificed to Zeus. It was to Zeus that he sacrificed it as an offering, the ram, and the golden fleece was taken from the ram and was given to King Aeetes. So the golden fleece is now created, is now made. A fleece, by the way, is like a woolly covering. So just imagine the sheep, a ram or a sheep. Nah, a ram, not a sheep. Imagine a ram, and that its covering is made of golden ornaments. So it's quite an expensive fleece. So the skin part, the woolly covering of the ram, was taken out and was given as an offering to King Aeetes, while the ram, the whole of it, was given as an offering to Zeus. So all of those had happened to Phrixus. Now we go back to Greece. What remains in Greece now is another person, the name of whom is Peleus. Phrixus had an uncle who by right supposedly is the ruler of Greece. It's just that this kingdom was taken away by him. This kingdom was taken away by his own nephew, the name of whom is Peleus. So again, Peleus is not the supposed ruler. It was rather the king, the uncle of Phrixus. While Peleus was ruling Greece, the king's young son, the supposed successor and inheritor of the Greek kingdom, was sent away to safety. And this is typical among kingdoms of before. If a king had a firstborn and you had just eliminated the king, you will also try to eliminate the firstborn male of that king. Because while the rightful successor exists, you cannot supposedly take the rule over the kingdom for yourself. So to make sure that Jason remains safe, he was sent away. But he was sent away he was sent away not only to protect himself, but to make himself ready for the right time that he is supposed to get the kingdom for himself under the name of his father. Peleus ruled Greece for some time. Eventually, there was this oracle that had told Peleus that there will come a time when a person comes into Greece with only one foot wearing a sandal and the other barefoot, and that man is then the supposed rightful ruler of the Greek kingdom. This was already foretold. This was learned and known by Peleus himself, as he was foretold of this. Did it happen? It did. When the right time came for Jason to go back to Greece, he indeed went back with only just one foot wearing a sandal. He was well clad all over. Like, he was well dressed all over, except that only one of his feet was wearing a sandal. The other was barefoot. The news about him, or the news about a man wearing only one sandal entering the Greek kingdom, went around the place. And eventually the news about a man with one foot, not wearing any sandal at all, went around the place. And when this reached the ears of Peleus, his heart started to pound faster. Because, again, this was already foretold to him. This was already one that is expected to happen. And he has known for it. He has known of this. And now the time has come. When this happened, Jason introduced himself. I am Jason. I am the rightful heir of the throne. He even told Peleus, we don't have to resort to any form of battle or violence. You can keep all your wealth to yourself. He offered that to Peleus. You keep your wealth. You keep your women. All that I need are the sovereign scepter and the throne. There's no need for brazen swords or spears to be involved in this. Again, I'm willing to give to you all of your wealth, all of your properties. You keep them. All that I'd like to get is one that's rightfully mine. The scepter, the sovereign scepter, and the throne. There is just one thing, though, that Peleus saw. An opportunity that would delay Jason's, if not delay, even possibly cancel out Jason's plan of getting the throne for himself. And that is to put Jason on a quest. So Peleus came in. Okay, I'm willing to accept you as our king. But before we do so, there's this adventure that I'd like you to embark on. Jason is one that likes adventures himself. Also, for Greek heroes, Greek noble heroes, Greek noble men, going on an adventure, especially one that involves waters or the seas, is a testament, will come out as a testament of how great an individual he is. Remember Seix last time in our story of Seix and Alcyone? He embarked on an adventure, and in the narrative it says that when the right time came for him to go for an adventure, so that is indeed a proof that for Greek men, noble Greek men and heroes before, going on an adventure adds or helps in building up a hero's name. That I think is one weakness for Jason. If I were Jason, I would have just refused the adventure and told Peleus to just step down as I am already there. But the adventurer that he is, he grabbed and accepted the adventure that Peleus had offered him. Peleus even packaged it this way. The dead Phrixus dead now, bids us bring back the Golden Fleece here in Greece. In doing so, if we manage to bring back the Golden Fleece here in Greece, we are more or less bringing back the spirit of Phrixus, who was also a rightful heir to the throne. Should you go about this quest, I will eventually relinquish the kingdom to you. And Jason, being again the adventurer that he is, accepted the quest for the Golden Fleece. And tomorrow we shall start the quest of the Golden Fleece of Jason and his men, known as the Argonauts. Any questions so far? For the introduction of the quest of the Golden Fleece. That was still the introduction, people. That was like episode 1. Any question? At this point, Athamas is now dead. Ino, Nephele, they're now dead. Greece is now with Peleus. Peleus, by the way, is the uncle of Jason. He's an uncle, the uncle of Jason. Yeah, he's the uncle of Jason. Questions? So you can imagine they're not of the same age. Peleus is older. Jason is maybe in his 20s, 30s. Any question? If you don't have any question, again, we'll have the continuation of this tomorrow. 7:30 is the time. Please don't forget. We shall continue it by 7:30 tomorrow. Up until when we shall be able to finish the narrative and the checking of the FTs. That'll be all for this morning. Goodbye and thank you. Grade 10.